For centuries, the Threxilian collective had traversed the galaxy, cataloging species and civilizations. As a hyper-intelligent, bio-engineered race, they believed themselves the ultimate arbiters of which species deserved to thrive and which posed a potential threat to their dominion. Their goal was methodical: study, evaluate, and either integrate or eliminate. When their probes detected Earth, the collective was initially unimpressed. Humanity's technology was rudimentary, its understanding of the cosmos limited. Yet, there was something about humans that defied easy classification. Despite their frailty and chaotic societies, humans had survived natural disasters, wars, and self-inflicted crises. Their resilience, combined with their baffling diversity of thought and ingenuity, was an anomaly. The Collective Scientific Council debated this peculiar species. Were humans merely a genetic quirk destined for extinction, or was there something deeper, something dangerous about their unpredictability? They decided on a cautious approach: abduct a single human for observation, a standard practice in their long history of galactic reconnaissance. Their scanners scoured the planet, seeking an isolated subject unlikely to cause complications. Their attention landed on a forested region in Japan, where a lone teenage girl was practicing with what appeared to be an ancient weapon. She was small, young, and seemingly defenseless, the perfect candidate. Primitive. Non-threatening, the lead scientist concluded. Confident in their assessment, they initiated the abduction. Little did they know that their choice would unravel their meticulously crafted plans and leave their entire species questioning their assumptions about humanity. Kid Yamamoto stood beneath the vast canopy of stars, her breath steady as she practiced her evening kata in the clearing near her family's estate. The rhythmic swish of her katana cutting through the crisp night air was accompanied by the distant rustle of leaves and the chirp of crickets. To Kid, this was more than a routine, it was her connection to her ancestors, a way to honor the legacy of Bushido that had guided her family for generations. High above, unseen to human eyes, the Threxilian collective's craft hovered silently. Within, alien eyes scrutinized her movements, their advanced sensors capturing every detail. Subject identified, one of the scientists declared, its voice clicking in satisfaction. Energy signatures are minimal. Threat level, negligible. The ship descended without a sound, its cloaking mechanisms distorting the light around it. Kid paused mid-swing, her finely tuned instincts detecting something amiss. The air around her shimmered unnaturally, a faint hum growing louder. Her grip tightened on her katana as she scanned the treeline, but before she could react, a brilliant beam of light engulfed her. It was as if the ground had vanished beneath her feet. Weightless, Kid felt herself pulled upward, her surroundings a blur of light and motion. She tried to move, to resist, but the beam held her firmly, and her mind reeled from the disorienting sensation. Yet even in this moment, her training kept her calm. She would wait, observe, and act when the time was right. When the beam finally released her, she landed on a cold, metallic surface. The air smelled sterile and sharp, nothing like the earthy richness of her forest home. As her vision adjusted, she saw towering, insect-like creatures with shimmering exoskeletons and glowing eyes observing her from a distance. Their alien forms were both grotesque and mesmerizing, and they exuded an aura of unearned superiority. Kid's hand instinctively went to her katana. To her surprise, it was still with her, a mistake she noted silently as the aliens began clicking and whirring among themselves. "Specimen secured," one of them said, its voice guttural and mechanical. A translucent barrier shimmered into place around her. Kid stood motionless, her sharp eyes studying the alien technology. The creatures were clearly intelligent, but they moved with an arrogance that betrayed their overconfidence. They saw her as a primitive being, a caged animal to be studied. As the aliens continued their discussion, Kid tested the barrier with a light tap of her blade. A ripple of energy responded, but she noticed something: the energy flickered briefly at the edges. It wasn't perfect. She tightened her grip on her katana and lowered into a ready stance. The aliens didn't realize it yet, but the hunter had just become the hunted. Keed stood in the center of the cold, alien chamber, her katana gleaming faintly under the harsh, sterile lights. The translucent barrier hummed around her, a high-pitched sound that grated against her ears. The alien scientists continued their chatter in a language of clicks and hisses, unaware that their specimen was already studying her surroundings with the discipline of a seasoned warrior. Her eyes darted around the room. The walls were adorned with strange glowing glyphs, their purpose unclear. Various instruments, some needle-like, others glowing ominously, floated on robotic arms. To anyone else, the environment might have felt oppressive, but Keed's resolve remained unshaken. She had been taught that fear was an illusion, a weakness to be cut away like overgrowth, choking a blade. "Begin analysis," one of the scientists ordered, its voice mechanical yet filled with an air of command. A robotic arm extended toward Keed, its tip sparking with blue energy. The moment was as brief as a breath. Keed shifted her weight, katana in hand, and unleashed a precise horizontal slash. The barrier erupted into a spray of crackling sparks as the sword met its energy field, shattering it like fragile glass. The nearest robotic arm dropped, cleanly severed, sparking and clattering to the floor. The aliens froze, their elongated bodies twitching with what Keed recognized as shock. Specimen breach. Impossible, primitive weaponry cannot. Keed didn't wait for them to finish their thought. She moved with the precision of her training, her katana a silver blur. The first alien fell as her blade sliced through its torso, its exoskeleton shattering like brittle porcelain. The others scrambled backward, their elongated limbs tangling as they tried to retreat. Sirens blared, and the lighting in the chamber shifted to an angry red. Security protocols activated, the ship's AI announced in a monotone voice. Metallic panels slid open in the walls, revealing hovering drones armed with energy blasters. Keed exhaled deeply, centering herself. The first drone fired, a bright streak of energy crackling toward her. She sidestepped with a fluid grace, the energy bolt striking the wall behind her. With a flick of her wrist, her katana severed the drone in two. She turned, blade ready, as another drone descended, but her footwork was quicker, her movements a blur as she leapt and slashed. The aliens observed her in stunned silence. They had expected compliance, not defiance. The human was supposed to be a fragile specimen, not a warrior capable of dismantling their technology with little more than a blade. Keed moved swiftly through the corridors, her keen senses guiding her. The ship was a labyrinth of sleek metal and glowing pathways, but her instincts honed by years of training in her family's dojo kept her steps deliberate and quiet. Every sound, every flicker of light was a potential threat, and she treated them all with the caution of a seasoned hunter. She paused at an intersection, her ears catching the faint clicks of alien voices. Two Threxilians rounded the corner, their long, spindly arms clutching glowing weapons. Keed didn't hesitate. In a single, fluid motion, she closed the distance between them, her blade flashing. The first alien dropped with a gurgling hiss, and the second staggered back, weapon raised. Keed's katana spun in her hands, disarming the creature before ending its struggle with a precise strike. The corridors began to shift around her, walls sliding in, morphing as the ship attempted to redirect her. The AI's voice echoed once more, containment breach escalating. Deploy all units. But the ship's automated defenses couldn't account for the unpredictability of Keed's movements, her ability to adapt to every change with a mix of instinct and training. By the time she reached what she guessed was the core chamber, her katana dripped with an iridescent green fluid, the remnants of her alien adversaries. Keed stood tall, her breath steady as she prepared for the next challenge. She knew the aliens had underestimated her from the beginning, and now, she would show them the full extent of what it meant to face a human warrior. Keed pushed open the massive circular door leading to the ship's core chamber. The room was immense, dominated by a pulsing reactor at its center, a swirling sphere of energy encased in translucent metal and surrounded by intricate machinery. The air vibrated with power, and the walls shimmered with shifting patterns of alien glyphs. As Keed stepped inside, her katana at the ready, a low, guttural voice echoed through the chamber. "So, the primitive has made it this far." From the shadows emerged Kolvrak, the ship's commander. He was larger than the other Threxilians, standing nearly twice Keed's height, with 4 muscular arms and a body reinforced by sleek metallic plating. His glowing yellow eyes radiated a cold intelligence, and the weapons he wielded, blades of plasma and energy cannons embedded in his arms, hummed with deadly potential. "You've caused quite a disruption, human," Kolvrak hissed, his voice a mix of disdain and grudging respect. "But this ends here." Keed narrowed her eyes, settling into a defensive stance. She had faced opponents stronger and faster than her before, but never one so alien. Yet the principles of Bushido remained the same: observe, adapt, and strike with precision. Kolvrak wasted no time. He lunged with surprising speed, 2 of his arms slashing with plasma blades while the other 2 fired bursts of energy. Keed dodged, her movements fluid and economical. The energy blasts seared past her, singing the edges of her hakama, but she was already countering, her katana arcing toward Kolvrak's torso. The blade struck his armor with a sharp clang, leaving only a faint scratch. Kolvrak laughed, the sound echoing ominously. "Your primitive weapon is useless against me." Keed said nothing, her face impassive as she darted back. Her eyes scanned his form, noting the way his armor shifted as he moved, the faint glow of exposed joints, the hiss of hydraulics in his limbs. She wasn't aiming for his armor, she was looking for his weaknesses. The battle intensified. Kolvrak's attacks were relentless, his plasma blades cutting through the air in blinding arcs, his energy blasts tearing into the chamber's walls and floor. Keed moved like a shadow, her katana deflecting blows and slicing through the occasional strike aimed too carelessly. Every move was deliberate, her training guiding her to bide her time until the opening presented itself. Then she saw it, a brief flicker of light at the base of Kolvrak's chest, where his armor plates joined. It was small, almost imperceptible, but Keed recognized it for what it was, the core of his power. Kolvrak charged again, his arrogance driving him into a wild flurry of attacks. Keed anticipated his movements, sidestepping at the last second and spinning behind him. With a burst of speed, she leapt onto his back, her feet finding purchase on the ridges of his armor. Before he could react, her katana plunged into the glowing seam at his chest. A deafening roar filled the chamber as Kolvrak staggered, his limbs flailing. Sparks erupted from the wound, and the energy within his core began to destabilize. Keed leapt clear, landing gracefully as the alien commander collapsed to his knees. "You are not primitive," Kolvrak rasped, his voice filled with pain and disbelief. "You are chaos." With a final shudder, his body went still, his core dimming to darkness. The once mighty commander of the Threxilian vessel lay defeated at the hands of a teenage samurai. Keed turned her attention to the reactor. Its swirling energy was the heart of the ship, and she sensed it was the key to ending this ordeal. Approaching the control console, she studied its alien glyphs, her sharp mind piecing together their purpose. With a calculated series of inputs, she activated the ship's auto-navigation, setting it on a course back to Earth. As the ship rumbled and began its descent, Keed glanced back at Kolvrak's lifeless form. "Arrogance is the downfall of the strong," she murmured, quoting one of her ancestors' teachings. She sheathed her katana and prepared for the next fight, knowing the Threxilian reinforcements wouldn't let her leave without a final confrontation. The Threxilian ship shuddered as it entered Earth's atmosphere, its once imposing hull now scarred by Keed's relentless assault. Alarms blared, and the ship's AI repeated warnings in an alien tongue, but Keed remained focused. She stood in the control chamber, her katana sheathed at her side, watching the display screens flicker with images of Earth growing closer. Auto navigation locked. Descent initiated, the AI announced in its monotone voice. But Keed knew her battle was far from over. Through the ship's external cameras, she saw a swarm of smaller alien crafts racing to intercept. Reinforcements had arrived, sleek Threxilian fighter vessels armed with energy cannons, their dark hulls glinting like obsidian shards in the sunlight. Keed tightened her grip on the ship's controls. She was no pilot, but she had learned to adapt quickly. Experimenting with the unfamiliar glyphs, she managed to activate the ship's limited defenses, firing bursts of plasma at the incoming fighters. The blasts tore through a few of the enemy ships, but their numbers were overwhelming. Just as Keed braced herself for the inevitable, a new presence appeared on the horizon. Human fighter jets, sleek, angular, and roaring with determination, streaked through the sky. Responding to the Threxilian invasion, Earth's militaries had scrambled their air forces to intercept the alien craft. Keed's heart lifted at the sight. Humanity wasn't as defenseless as the aliens had believed. The jets engaged the alien fighters in a chaotic aerial battle, missiles streaking across the sky and explosions lighting up the clouds. The Threxilians, unprepared for Earth's coordinated resistance, faltered. Keed took advantage of the distraction, steering the alien ship closer to the ground. She aimed for a remote clearing, far from populated areas, knowing she needed to finish this battle on her terms. As the ship touched down with a heavy thud, Keed leapt from the control chamber, her katana ready. The surviving Threxilian fighters descended after her, their sleek craft deploying squads of alien soldiers. These reinforcements were larger and better armed than the scientists she had faced earlier, their energy weapons glowing menacingly. Keed stood her ground, her stance firm and unwavering. She didn't wait for them to act. With a battle cry that echoed across the clearing, she charged into their ranks. Her katana was a blur of motion, slicing through alien armor and deflecting energy blasts. The Threxilians, though technologically advanced, were no match for her speed, precision, and unrelenting determination. Overhead, the human jets continued to dominate the skies. With each alien craft shot down, the tide turned further in humanity's favor. Keed noticed some of the alien soldiers faltering, their confidence shaken by the unexpected resistance from both her and Earth's military. One of the larger Threxilian commanders stepped forward, its voice a deep growl. "You fight like a demon," it snarled. "But you cannot hold back the collective alone." Keed didn't respond with words. Instead, she moved with lightning speed, her katana finding its mark in the alien's exposed joint. The commander fell, its weapon clattering uselessly to the ground. As the last of the Threxilian forces retreated, the remaining human jets circled overhead. One descended low enough for the pilot to spot Keed standing amid the wreckage, her silhouette framed by the rising sun. The pilot radioed in disbelief, "Command, you're not gonna believe this, but it looks like a single person took down most of them on the ground." Keed sheathed her katana and glanced skyward, her expression calm. She knew she had done what was necessary to protect her home. As the human forces moved in to secure the area, Keed quietly disappeared into the forest, her part in the battle complete. Back on the Threxilian homeworld, the story of Earth's unexpected resistance began to spread. The collective, once so confident in their superiority, was forced to reconsider their plans. Humanity, they realized, was not just resilient, it was dangerous in ways they could never have anticipated. For Keed, life returned to the quiet discipline of her family's dojo. Yet, she couldn't ignore the faint hum of distant stars, the knowledge that Earth's place in the galaxy had forever changed. She resumed her training, knowing that should the Threxilians or any other invaders return, she would be ready. The way of the samurai was eternal, and so was the indomitable spirit of humanity. The Threxilian collective withdrew from Earth, their defeat a cautionary tale whispered across the stars. For a civilization that had always believed itself invincible, the encounter with humanity and a lone warrior girl was a humbling reminder of the unpredictable strength that lay in so-called primitive species. Hide Yamamoto returned to her family's dojo, the quiet rhythm of her life resuming as though nothing extraordinary had happened. The world around her remained blissfully unaware of her role in the battle that had secured Earth's safety. The forest where she trained held its secrets, the stars above shining as they always had. Yet, within her, everything had changed. Every evening, she practiced her kata beneath the open sky, her katana moving with even greater precision. The blade that had tasted alien blood now bore an aura of quiet reverence, a symbol of the balance between destruction and discipline. She carried no pride from her victory, only the lessons of Bushido, humility, resilience, and the understanding that strength was a tool to protect, not to dominate. Beyond Earth, however, her legacy began to spread. Survivors of the Threxilian forces shared tales of the human who fought like a whirlwind, whose blade moved faster than thought, and whose resolve was unshakable. Hide had become a figure of myth among the stars, a warning to any who might think of challenging humanity. On Earth, Hide's life remained grounded in tradition. She trained quietly, teaching younger students the way of the samurai. Her lessons were simple but profound: honor your ancestors, respect your opponents, and understand that true strength comes not from weapons but from discipline and clarity of purpose. Years later, as she stood beneath the night sky, a new generation of warriors training at her side, Hide felt the weight of the galaxy's gaze upon her. She knew that Earth's future would hold challenges beyond imagination. The stars were vast, and humanity was still young. Yet she also knew that, with people willing to fight for what they believed in, no force in the universe could extinguish the human spirit. The stars twinkled above, vast and mysterious, but they no longer felt distant. They felt like a battlefield waiting to be claimed, a stage where humanity would write its next great chapter. And when that time came, Hide knew humanity would not face it unprepared. The way of Bushido endured, and through it, humanity's fire would burn brighter than ever before.